to my channel, Sunshine Shoulders. I'm Calvin. Thank you so much for stopping by. So many channels that you could be watching, but you're watching mine, and I'm truly grateful for that. You know, something came across my mind today, and I wanted to share it. Somebody asked me, they said, why do you always say that at the end of your videos? When you help other people, you help yourself. And I just want to put some context behind it. When I was 8 years old, my mother stopped me. I don't know what I was doing. Must have been playing in the yard, playing in the house. But she said, boy, don't you ever drink or do drugs. And I thought that was strange. I was 8 years old. I said, Mama, I don't want nothing to drink. I'm going to be a pro football player. And I just went on doing whatever it was I was doing. You know, on both sides of my family, my mother's side and my father's side, alcoholism ran rampant. I guess because she had saw so many of her, cousins and uncles die. Many of them never made it to the age of 40. She thought she'd tell me that. Well, it was like she had a crystal ball because I lost 3 brothers to alcoholism and drug addiction. One of my brothers, he wasn't even 30 years old. He drank himself to death. They found him frozen. He died of exposure in a garage in Lexington, Kentucky. Another brother, he was 26 years old. All he did was get drunk the day he was killed. He got into an argument with a guy earlier. The guy pulled a shotgun on him. Later on that night, he's at the nightclub. He gets into it with a younger guy. The guy goes home, gets a gun, comes back and shoots him in the chest and kills him. He dies instantly, 26 years old. And then I had a brother, 55 years old. He died of a drug overdose. But I forgot all about that when I turned 12. I started drinking. And for the next 23 years, nonstop, I drank. I used drugs in some form. A career in alcoholism and drug addiction. I qualified for retirement and benefits, if there was such a thing, man. You know, but it's not funny. So I'm going to fast forward this. May the 13th, 1998. My wife, at the time, had enough. Remember, on my last video, I was talking about how I had enough. 11 years later, but in 1998, she had enough of me spending up all the money, wasting it out in the street, not doing what I was supposed to do at home. And while I was asleep, she cut up all my clothes. And then the clothes that she couldn't cut up, she wrote on there in shoe polish, dope fiend, crackhead, alcoholic, and she threw all my stuff out in the front yard. We were living in the projects, Beecher Terrace projects, because that's the best I could do. Listen, guys, I was 35 years young, and I've never had a good job in my life. I've only had great jobs. But because of my alcoholism and drug addiction, I never could amount to anything. Working at DuPont Chemicals, Boyden Chemicals, Brown and Williamson, Tobacco Corporation, United Distillers. I had jobs that people worked 30, 40 years, retired, and went on about their business. But for me, I couldn't last. The longest I lasted on one of those great jobs was like 2.5 years. And I remember getting high on the job, walking off. Well, anyway, we're in the projects, and I go outside, and I'm bending down, picking up the remnants of my life. My whole life passed in front of me. It flashed in front of me. And then one last act of defiance, she poured a jar of pickle juice over my head. So there I am dripping with pickle juice. And I walk over to a homeless shelter. It's right around the corner. I went past this place 100 times, maybe 1,000. I used to laugh at the guys over there. I said, why don't they get their life together? They be out there in line, grown men, lined up, waiting for something to eat or getting assigned a bed if there was any available. I went over there and I checked myself in. I was done, man. I was pitiful. Really. I burned every bridge. My family had washed their hands of me. And I was there for about a week when I get a tap on my shoulder. And I turn around, and there's a guy. He's got his hand stretched out, and he's got $2 in his hand. I said, hey, man, what's this for? He says, you look like you could use $2. And I was stunned. I was like, how did he know that $2 was what I needed the most in my life at that time? Nobody was coming to see me in that homeless shelter. Nobody was answering their phones. I didn't have a friend in the entire world. And don't you know, with tears in my eyes, I asked this man, I'm a grown man. I'm sitting there. I won't say I cried like a baby, but I didn't. I cried like a man. Something happened in me that day. And I said, how could I ever pay you back? And he said, just do it for somebody else. And I've been doing it ever since. Well, I ended up staying 33 days at the place. They helped me back on my feet, pointed me in the direction where to get some help. And I actually took that principle from a program that says to keep what you got to give it away. Okay? I just turned it around and said that when you help other people, you help yourself. And about a year later, we're coming back from vacation from Alabama. We'd go every summer. And we're cleaning out our closets and stuff because by this time, you know, we've got a lot of stuff because I'm not spending my money on drugs and alcohol. I'm spending it in the house. And I see these 3 pair of shoes. They're brand new, basically. And I said, well, you ain't wearing these anymore. I'm going to take them around here to this homeless shelter. Maybe somebody there can wear them. I'll use them. I'll donate them. And so I walked around. I didn't even drive. I walked. And these 3 guys were walking out the cafeteria, the same cafeteria I used to eat. And I said, hey, any of you guys wear a size 9.5? Well, all 3 of these guys wore a 9.5. And I thought, well, hell, that's the miracle right there. I remember being excited, going home telling my wife, hey, you know, those 3 pair of shoes, the first 3 guys I saw, they all wore the same size as me. And I left it alone. Well, about 2 years passed, and I'm sitting in a meeting, the meeting that they suggest us go to. And there's a guy at the podium, he's telling his story. He says, you know, I'm at the homeless shelter, and my sponsor at the time, I told him, I said, hey, I'm getting ready to leave. I don't think I can get any help here. So his sponsor says, look, before you leave, he says, tonight, when you're getting ready to go to bed, he said, get down on your knees and ask God to send you a sign. He said, I don't believe in God. He said, I don't care. He said, get on your knees and ask God to send you a sign. Should you stay or should you go? And he said, I didn't have nothing to lose. So he said, get on his knees and he just said, God help me, send me a sign. He went to bed, he woke up, got something to eat. He comes out of the cafeteria and he says, there's a guy standing there with 3 pairs of shoes. He hands me a pair of shoes. And I'm thinking to myself, this is his words, not mine. He says, how did he know that a pair of shoes was what I needed most in my life at the time? He said, because the shoes I had on my feet, I'd been wearing for 2 months without ever taking them off. He said, when I took them off, he said, the black ink from the shoes had turned my feet black. He said, I needed that pair of shoes. He said, that was a sign from God for me to stay at this homeless shelter and get my life together. And that was 23 years ago. This month, matter of fact, the 21st, I'm talking to you on July the 20th. This is no coincidence. This guy went on to become a top salesman at his job, became the general manager, accumulated over $1 million worth of real estate at one time. right now as we speak, this guy who was homeless, who didn't even have a decent pair of shoes on in that homeless shelter, lives in about a $350,000 home on a lake in Kentucky. And he says he owes it all to those pair of shoes. He said that was a sign from God. You know, every time I talk about it, the hairs on my arm raise up. And me and him became friends, and about another year later, it was on Christmas Eve, I told him, I said, hey, look, man, you know, I'm the guy who gave you those shoes. And man, he couldn't believe it. He was like, well, why did you wait so long to tell me? I said, because I didn't want to spoil the miracle. But this is where that law of compensation comes in. Because see, it's about that time I started not only getting my life together, but I started reading those books by Napoleon Hill, Dr. Dennis Kimbrough, and all those guys. And they were talking about the law of compensation. That when you help somebody, the universe will reward you 100 times, 1,000 times, or more of your sacrifice. And of course, I didn't believe it, but that act right there was the first act where I saw it in motion. Because I went on to buy a house. I went on to clean up my credit. I went on to become the top salesman in my life insurance company and won all the trips and did all of that. Excuse me. But along the way, I never forgot to give back. And that's what I do today. That's why my channel got started. But let me tell you one more story before I get off of here. Because I could stay on here all day telling you these kinds of stories and how important it is of helping other people. I had another friend show up at that same homeless shelter. He was in bad shape by his own words. But he knew it was me because he came to me. We're about the same size. He said, hey, you got any clothes you can give me? He said, I don't have nothing. I lost everything. So I went home and went through all my closets and got good stuff. Because, you know, even though we're drug addicts and alcoholics, we want to look good too. And I filled up 2 black plastic bags of clothes. And of course, he was in the homeless shelter. He couldn't come and get them. So his father came to my house, picked up the bags. I gave them to him. I forgot all about it. 3 years later, I go to the closing, sign, you know, my name on the dotted line for the house loan for my house. And I was so excited, man, because it took us 68 days to close on this house. I sent a bouquet of flowers to the bank. Well, the very next day I saw this guy. He was like, man, you sent those flowers to the wrong people. I was like, what are you talking about? How'd you know I sent flowers? He said, because that was my sister who approved your loan. I never saw his sister. She was the underwriter on that loan. He said they were at church. Look, man, this is crazy, man. This stuff gets crazy. He said they were at church, and my sister was going up to the, what do you call it when you put money in the basket? Well, anyway, they saw her. They were sitting together, and he said, yeah, that's Wilma Roach. And he said, yeah, that's Calvin Roach's sister. And she said a bell went off in her head. She said, Calvin Roach? His application's on my desk at work. And he went on to tell his sister how much I had helped him up to that point, right? Because she was getting ready to stamp reject and send that application back. Don't you know that this lady went the extra mile, made those loan originators go back and correct all those errors that they made on my application to get my application approved? Yeah, the same guy that I gave those 2 black plastic bags, clothes, used clothes. Because I tell people, I said, the universe turned 2 black plastic bags of used clothes into a brand new home for me and my family. They don't believe it, but it's true. Had I not helped him, my loan would have never been approved. Guys, this stuff is real. It is. And I don't know why I'm sharing it with you today about my recovery, about giving some context on why I help people the way I do. This isn't just something that I started when I started Sunshine Shoulders. Yeah, I started Sunshine Shoulders by helping struggling Filipinos during the pandemic, but I've been helping people for over 24 years because somebody helped me. When I decided to get sober and stop drinking, people came out of the woodwork. They offered me jobs, rides to work, loans, different things to help me make it from one day to the next. That's what my spin wheels are for. I'm not going to cure the problems with people with that spin wheel, but I can help them get from one day to the next. So that's just a little context of why I say that at the end of every video. And I always say it as long as I have my channel, because it's real. If I throw my rag up in the air, what's going to happen? It's going to come down. Why? Because of the law of gravity. Does it matter if I understand the law of physics or not? Does it matter if I'm black or white, rich or poor, if I got a PhD or if I never went to school at all? Once this rag leaves my hand, the law of gravity takes over. It's the same with the law of compensation. It's the same when we start helping people. It doesn't matter what your motive is. The minute you make up your mind that you're going to help somebody, no matter what it is, the universe is going to reward you 100 times, 1,000 times, sometimes more for your sacrifice. It's no wonder why my channel has grown the way it has, because I started out helping people. So I just wanted to share that message with you today. I know, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to ramble, and this isn't my typical vlog. But the universe put it on my mind to talk about it today. Maybe somebody out there needs to hear it. But that guy gave me $2. And if you're watching, man, I want to thank you. You changed my entire life. You set me on a course that I never even knew existed. And 24 years later, I'm still helping folks. So if in America it's early, you're about to get up, or maybe you're up already. Get a newspaper, you're going to the gym, a cup of coffee, you're going to work, whatever you're doing. And wherever you are, if you see somebody that needs some help, offer some help. Doesn't always have to be money. If you're in the Philippines, it's about 5:30 p.m. I'm in Heidi's Cabin 1. This is upstairs in Dumaguete. I'm going to immigration to get my extension. Well, they're actually doing it now. I pick up my passport in the morning, going back to San Carlos City. I'm going to do a short video on this one, on the one, because I did one on 2 downstairs. For anybody coming through Dumaguete, it's one of the best Airbnb values that I've ever run across anywhere in the world. It's like being at home, as you can see. Now, a day goes by over here that I don't help somebody. Because if I don't know anything else, I know this one thing for sure. When we help other people, we help ourselves. Take care, stay safe, stay COVID free. I'll see you next time.